And as the 2023 general elections draw closer, most of the candidates have promised to reduce the cost of governance in Nigeria. But how realistic is this, and what does this mean? Let's talk to Gabriel Okeowo, now country director at Budget. Join us right here in the studio. Great to have you.
Thank you very much. My pleasure being here.
So, we've had, a couple of promises, from the presidential aspirants there talking about reducing the cost of governance in Nigeria. But I want you to paint a picture. How expensive is it for taxpayers to maintain the Nigerian government?
Okay, thank you very much. I think cost of governance has become a routine conversation that we've been having as a country over the years, and how big it is where we should first be looking at. And when you look at what it is that goes into maintaining the structure that we have currently. Nigeria is a population of about 200 persons, 200 million, right? We have 36 states, and currently the cabinet that we run right now, the mother ministries, we have about 26, 27 mother ministries. Some of those ministries, in Nigeria, we have senior ministers and junior ministers, and so when you look at what goes into servicing those ministries, servicing the leadership of those ministries, they are huge. If you put that side by side with a United States, for example, with its huge population, about 54 states, has just about 15 executive, departments or ministries, as we call it here. So when you then look at what is the relevance of some of these, ministries, and alone, aside from that, when you put that together, and that's just talking about the cabinet. When you look at the old MDAs in Nigeria, we are talking about over 900 of them, right? And all of these, we have either the executive secretary or the DG or there is a whole lot that we are spending as a country in maintaining this structure.
Because all of these people have to be paid.
They have to be paid because they're on the payroll of government, and there's not even talking about corporations. We have over 500, state-owned enterprises, and some of those state-owned enterprises are refineries, some government assets that have, group heads. They have the DGs, they have the executive secretary. They are not. These are even agencies that are meant to be, turning in revenue for government. But you realize that year in, year out, they are running at a loss, and yet we are still maintaining them. These guys still goes on training, they goes on traveling, they take pension and all that. And the question is, if we were to be a businessman or a businessman, and there is an arm of your business that is consistently, recording losses, what do you do? Do you keep using the profit from other arm of the business to service these that is consistent? And those are, things that you put together and that makes you look at the size of our governance. From the executive to the legislators, a bit on the judiciary, on how much goes into managing these three arms of government and the structure of governance generally in Nigeria. Because,
we've been hearing a lot about, tech layoffs these days, and obviously they did hire a lot, because of COVID, and they're now having to lay off, most of those people because they cannot continue to. So if we run Nigeria, as a business, with a CEO, what should we be doing at this time?
Maybe this is another opportunity we have as a country, really, for us to rejig the system. And a lot of us are anticipating who comes into administration come, May 29. And if we are going to make any significant change, there has to be that person that can wear the cap of a CEO, that can run Nigeria like a private business, and really look at what is working and what is not working. We have a whole lot of our potentials or the structures that we have built as a country that are not really working. They are not yielding what they are supposed to be yielding. We have to go back to the table and look at them. And there are loads and loads of reports and analysis that have been done, even by government, by civil society organization, analysis by media organizations that has been done on some of these things. That we need to go back and look at those reports again and see what
let's compare to other African countries. Is this what is also obtainable there?
When you look at, if we compare, the system of government that we run here to neighboring African countries, unfortunate that I don't have, word for word analysis on that. But you don't see this. This is common in Africa setting, but not to the tune at which we are running it in Nigeria. So let's take, for example, the legislative arm of government. Every state in Nigeria will have, at the federal level, at the state level, we have representative at the state houses of assembly. We have 3 senatorial districts. We have another 3 or 4 at the House of Representatives. Those are functions that looks like a repetitive roles, right? And the effect of that is that it's built up on how much goes into managing this structure, right? These are guys that you have to change their cars, you have to give them wardrobe allowance, you have to give them newspapers allowance, and all of that. We need to look at that structure again as a country, so that we are not just taking the template of, democracy as, federalism as it has been handed over to Nigeria, and we are just running with it. Can we look at it again and tailor it to what works for us? What has actually been the impact of having, 3 senators from each state, having honorable members of House of Assembly, House of Representatives? What has been the impact of having a senior minister and a junior minister in a particular ministry? We need to look at all of those structures again, and see what is working and what is not working, and then drop what is not working. That is what a CEO that is running a private business will actually do. Every time, every quarter, you are sitting down and you are checking your books again. What is working and what is not working? I think that's the question we are not asking in Nigeria. It just appears as though when we create a structure, we allow the structure to go on an auto run, and our budget is like a copy and paste. We just keep allocating without checking back on what did well, what didn't do well, what do we need to cut, and what do we need to remove.
And I'm talking about the new CEO. Do you think it would be that easy to cut the cost of government?
Well, we know that, among the front runner, we have some of them that are promising, but the truth of the matter is it is not going to be easy. That's the truth. But the situation we are finding ourselves in Nigeria today, we need that leader that can be bullish in his approach, or we don't have any that is a front runner, right? That can be bullish in approach, that can, axe out all of these loopholes that keep sucking out the resources of this country.
Because it seems like this will be met with some resistance.
It will definitely be met with some resistance, and most of the time when there is a need for us as a nation to, effect some of these critical changes, what we have seen and why it doesn't work is that government usually goes to the cheap part, which is how it affects citizens, right? So if it will be, what we are saying is not for a government to come in and begin to look at reducing or tampering with the parts that will impact more on citizens. Can we begin the axing from the government itself? If a president comes in and it's difficult to adjust the cost of governance in the legislative or the judiciary arm of government, it can start with his cabinet. We need a president that can come in and say, I don't need 27 ministers, senior ministers, 16 state ministers of state. I don't need all of that. I just need a 10-man team or a 15-man team that can work with me. I know a lot of things we go into that. We'll begin to talk about federal character, because that has to be representative. All of that, I believe, if the man at the ends of affair lay out his plan and have a strong justification. As a matter of fact, if we see that as ordinary citizens happening at the executive arm of government, happening at the government, right, it would then be easier, lot easier for citizens to, you know, also adjust to whatever inconvenience that this bullish approach may also bring on citizens. But most of the time we see this policy change, we see this quote unquote innovation affecting the citizens, and it just looks as if it is at the detriment of the citizens that you know, the elite or those in government continue to maintain certain parts of kind of lifestyle.
And let's say this, you know, continues. You know, we're having to pay so much to, you know, maintain the government. There's no reduction in cost, and revenue is still where it is. What happens to the economy?
What happens to the economy is what we are seeing now. Right now, as it is, we cannot boast as a nation that any of our revenue will be enough to service our debts and be enough to meet our recurrent, not to talk of, you know, having some leftovers to go into capital expenditures. And when you look at the size of our recurrent expenditure as a country, it keeps going higher and higher at a size that is not commensurable with capex. Right? And when you look at it, recurrent is that part that service the government, that service those in government, either by the building, the structure where they work from, or even their salaries and the largesse of the cars, the entourage that they have, is the recurrent that service that. And you see that on a yearly basis going up and up. But when you look at capex, you are not seeing the same thing. Let me give you an example. In the 2022 approved budget, the personnel cost was 5.6 trillion. Overhead cost was 5.5 trillion. Capex was 4.3. In the 2023 approved budget, now look at what happens to overhead and capex. Capex moved just by 600 million from 4.3 in 2022 to 4.9 in 2023. But when you look at overhead, you are seeing 5.5 in 2022, and then you are seeing 7.8 trillion in 2023. Look at that huge gap, right? And that's what we are talking about. How come that our overhead keeps increasing? We run, I have the opportunity to be running an organization, and I know that the solar system that I bought, or the router for our internet that we bought last year, will not necessarily be changed this year. At least we expect that should run us another 3 years before we need to change it. But what we see in government is there is a need to keep purchasing laptops every year. You are even purchasing cooking utensils in the Aso Villa every year, and that is the little ways that, you know, our cost of governance increases. And we should not just focus on federal government alone. Even at the state level, there is a huge, you know, cost of governance that is also going on.
Is there a cheaper form of government?
Well, maybe no, but it should not be. It should be. Let me give you an example. Let's narrow down states, for example. The operating cost of a state, let me use Bayelsa State as an example. The operating cost of Bayelsa State is far higher than the operating cost of a Kano State, higher than the operating cost of Rivers State. Now, when you put that side by side, and not considering the FARC allocation, let's look at the IGR capacity of this state. Bayelsa State in a year will struggle to make a 20 billion naira in IGR, right? Now, when you put that side by side with a River State that will make over 100 billion, about 140 billion in IGR, and yet the operating cost of a Bayelsa that is struggling to make a 20 billion is higher than the operating cost of a River State. How do you balance that? Now, the question will be, how come, where are they seeing the excess money? Of course, there is a FARC allocation, there is 13% derivative, and all of that is not meant to increase the cost of governance, which is what we are talking about. It should actually be an advantage that they have access to these other sources of revenue to improve on the lives of the citizens, of the well-being. But what we have seen is the more we have money in circulation, the more the lifestyle of government improves, and then that comes to the detriment of the citizens. The same conversation we also goes to...
And I'm wondering if there's a universally accepted size of government.
Of course, I'm not sure there is any universally accepted, size of government. What I just believe is every government, every nation needs to develop what works for them, right? We need to look at context. So, and the anomalies we can easily see. If the convoy of a Lagos State governor and the convoy of a Ekiti State governor is the same thing, is the same size, it is an anomaly. It is not right. Because what Lagos State will make in 1 month is what another state will make in 1 year, for example. It then means that what it will take to run a state like a Lagos will be more than what it will take to run a state that will make what a Lagos will make in a month, in a year. So we should look at all of that. But when you see our governors moving, when you see the senators and all of them moving, they seem to be at par. If our business, if we are running business and your turnover, you are doing a turnover of ₦1 trillion in a year, and I'm doing a turnover of 10 million in a year, we are not definitely going to live the same lifestyle.
Have the same
we can't live in the same environment. We can't drive the same car. How come that when it comes to governance, states that are not doing at par with other states all have the same kind of lifestyle? Those are the cost of governance that we are talking about.
I guess the new government, they have a lot of pruning.
It's a lot of work
to do at this time.
It's a lot of
definitely hope they have the political will to actually go ahead with that. I want to thank you so much, Mr. Gabriel Kewo, Country Director of Budget. It was great having your perspective.
Thank you very much. Yeah.